Great. All right. So welcome to Brain Training for Parkinson's. My name's Stephanie. Today we're going to be working on eye tracking drills and concepts to improve spinal mobility. So your ability of your spine to flex, go into a curve, to extend, and to rotate, and to side bend. Okay. So let me just review those spine movements so that when I'm talking about them in class and I say put your spine in flexion, you may have a more context to that. So flexion, and if you want to do them with me right here, flexion is rounding your spine. Extension is arching your spine. And especially for Parky folks, maybe extension is challenging for you. And I like to do this with my hands just to kind of bring that imagery in. Good. And then we can do some side bending. We did this a little bit last week in the breathing class, allowing those ribs to expand. So we have side bending, of course, on both sides. Great. And then we have rotation. If you want to hold on to your knee or just rotate in some way, rotation. And of course, we have rotation in both directions. Okay. So functional anatomy, flexion, extension, side bending, and rotation. Okay. So again, as I said, we're going to be doing some eye drills to facilitate those spine motions, and then also some movements on the floor. So make sure you have a big open floor space. There's a quick note on spinal mobility. Spinal mobility, if you don't already know, spinal mobility is important for all sorts of functional movements, bending over to pick something up off the floor, having fluid gait mechanics. You want rotation and side bending and flexion and extension in your gait. Getting up and down off the floor requires some spinal mobility. So you can tell that spinal mobility is important for in a movement sense. And then also we talked a little bit about it last week, but your mechanical breath, so your ability to expand your ribs outward and move your spine, is important for that air to be able to come inward. And kind of a lesser known, but probably the most important reason why we want to have good spine mobility is because movement of the spine and the fluidity in our spine naturally massages the organs in your trunk. And as you age and with lack of movement, the organs can become stiff and rigid. And then that's what further exacerbates sort of organ disease. All right. So the more that we can massage our organs through fluid movement in the spine, we can have healthy, lubricated and well massaged organs and to maintain their function. All right. So if those three reasons aren't enough for you, I don't know what to tell you. I hope that's reason enough to have the buy-in for a good spine. So let's do our pre-class check-in. We're going to do three different movements to sort of test our spinal mobility, and then we'll do the interventions, and then we'll come back and test them at the end. So the first one, of course, is just a gait check-in. So go ahead and walk around your room and take some mental notes, if not physical notes, on your gait. Okay, so a couple things to consider in your gait. I talk about this frequently, is your stride length, where you hit the ground. So if you're heel striking, your midfoot striking, or your toe walking. And again, we're not judging any of these. We're just noticing what your default is. The sound of your stride, the smoothness of your stride. And then, especially for this group, I observe arm swing. And I'm talking about natural arm swing, not forced arm swing. Natural arm swing. All right. You don't want to ever force arm swing. Your arm swing should be coming as a byproduct of spinal mobility. Okay. So if you have static arms by your side in your gait, it's probably because you're not moving as much in your spine. Okay. Great. So if you like to take physical notes, go ahead and jot a few observations of your gait. If you like to just do it in a mental capacity, go ahead and do a mental capacity. Good. And then, so the second exercise that we're going to do, just to check in on, oops, that's not a good spot. Let me put you over here, is you're going to be in a wider stance, just temporarily right here. So I'm standing. We're going to be in a wider stance. We're going to bend down so you have your hands on your knees. I don't know if this is like a defensive, I don't know, whatever. So right here, and I want you to round your spine. So tuck your tail, and you can almost think about broadening in your upper back. And then extend your tail and bring your eyes forward. So it's kind of like a standing cat-cow exercise. Round your spine, try to pull your navel in towards the ceiling, and then extend your spine out. Okay, we'll just do that one more time. Round your spine and extend. Good. We can also do rotation here a little bit as well. So if you drop your right shoulder or your left shoulder down towards the ground and look over your right shoulder, we can get some nice rotation in here, pushing out on your inner thigh as well. And then go ahead and check the other side. You can push in and rotate over your other shoulder. So this is both a warm-up kind of stretch and also a check-in. How is your spinal mobility? Are you able to look over one shoulder just as far as the other side or not? Go ahead and switch to the other side. We'll go back and forth, right, left a few times. Good. I'm going to do one more time on each side. So you can imagine with especially rotation, you get this good like twisting of all those organs inside of your torso. Kind of I was talking about this massaging effect. Your organs do move around a little bit inside the torso, and you want that malleability. You want the ligaments to stretch just a little bit and there to be some pliability in there. Good. And then go ahead and bring yourself up to a full stand. We're just going to check your side bending ability. So bring your feet roughly underneath you. Yep. And right here, we're just going to take your hand down the side of your body. See how far you can reach down the side of your leg. Yep. And then bring it back up. And then see how far you can reach on that side of your leg. I can go a little bit more on that side. Good. And we'll just do that a few times. And again, either taking mental notes or physical notes. Being a sort of mover, kinesthetic type person, I'm pretty good at logging sensations and perceptions. So I take my time and kind of do a body scan in each of these positions and say, okay, what can I log? What can I notice about this position? And log that so that I can compare, contrast it either to the other side or at the end of class. Great. Perfect. All right. So you have your almost pre-class check-in. That was also a nice little spine warm-up. Let's come back to your station here, either where your computer is, or you can stay standing, up to you. I just like being closer to the screen so I can watch y'all. Grab your eye tracking device here, or your pen. Pencil. Good. Sit up nice and tall. Roll out the shoulders. Make sure that your head is stacked back up on top of your spine. And we have our eye tracking device here. We're going to go ahead and take our eyes. Ooh, if you know yourself to cheat, hold your chin with your other hand. So we're going to take our eyes over to one side of our face, pulling that pen as far as you can to one side, straining in those eyes a little bit to get them all the way over. Once you feel like you hit your end range, we'll go ahead and go to the other side. Good. And I'm just going to recap for anyone that's just joining us on these eye tracking drills, just a little background info. If you already know it, you can tune out. The idea is that our body is not going to move if we're not able to see where we're moving into. So the more we can expand the literal range of motion of our eyeballs, the more quote unquote safe or ready our body is going to be able to move in that direction. So for example, if you have trouble rotating to the left, we might need to work more on pulling your eyeballs to the left side of your face. Good. And we're going to do about 4 more total. So 2 each side. Take your time with this. You really want to make sure you're hitting your end range in either direction. Good. Make sure that pen or pencil stays in your focus. So try not to let it go double. Good, good. And then bring it back in, either seated or standing. Set your tracking tool down. I'm going to do this seated just because I'm right here with my computer, but feel free to do this standing, no big deal. We're just going to go backstroke with the arms, reaching back, one arm at a time. You can press into your thighs if you want a little bit more leverage to get that rotation. All right. Go ahead and bring your eyes with it, because remember, our eyes dictate our movement. So as you look over to the left, you need to bring your eyes to the left, maybe even precede the motion. Good. Remember, your head is also part of your spine. So if you're not moving your neck, oh man, we're not going to be moving the spine. That's it, Sally. Nice job. Good. We're going to do about 3 more. Rotate back and rotate back. You got it. Last one. Excellent. And bring it back. Grab your eye tracking device. Much better. Oh, yeah. We're getting a little eye massage. Great. All right. So now we're going to work on the diagonals here, the up diagonal and the, so diagonal up. Let's start with diagonal up to this is your left. Okay. So if you know yourself to cheat, make sure that your head is stacked on top of your spine. We want nice upright posture. So we're going to go up to the left, the eyeballs pulled to the left corner, and then down to the right, the eyeballs pulled to the down corner. Good. And you're going to do about, so anywhere between 8 and 10 total passes. My sentences are broken because I'm concentrating. 8 to 10 total passes, really working your end range. So take a moment at the end to convince yourself, yep, that's truly as far as I can go. Good. And then maybe one more. Good. And then after you finish that last one, blink your eyes and or give yourself a little eyebrow, eyelid, eyeball massage. Because if you're pulling yourself truly to your edges, you should be getting some eye strain. Okay, so this should be like relief after some of that work. And then of course, we're going to do the other direction up and down. So go ahead and grab your eye tracking tool. Your other hand is on your chin, making sure that you're, again, upright posture, head is back on top of your spine, and you're not dropping your head. Okay, keeping it back. And of course, we're going to go other quadrant. And you know, when I'm quiet, I'm really focused. Good. Try not to let your head move. It's about your eyeball movement. Good. So you're tracking your pen with your eyeballs. Look at the pen. Focus on the pen with your eyeballs. Good. And I would say for some of you, bring the pencil a little bit closer. Try not to be so far away. Try to be like maybe bent elbow, kind of closer to your face. Good. Don't move your head there, Sally. Keep your head straight. Yep. Maybe one more. Good. Great. And once you feel like you got that side sufficiently, blink, massage your eyeballs, and you can put your tracking device down. Good. And then let's go ahead and make your way down to the ground. And as you're getting down to the ground, actually real quick, before you guys get down to the ground, as you get down to the ground, notice what spine mobility needs to be available in order for you to get down to the floor efficiently. So depending on how you do that, if you're one of these people that, you know, you flex your spine and then you come down, or maybe you squat and then side bend and bring yourself down, just make some mental notes for yourself how that spinal mobility contributes to your ability to come down to the ground. Good. Good. And in particular, I love working, just as a side note, while you guys are kind of getting settled, I do love floor work for the idea that you can't fall. And it also gives you this really wide, expansive, or hopefully expansive place to move around, sort of uninhibited by equipment and props and things of that sort. So just floor work with your own body weight is a really nice way to integrate some of these skills, because your nervous system feels safe, you can't fall, and there's also lots of freedom to explore and discover new things for yourself. All right, so hopefully we're all about here. We're going to come into what's called a Z sit. So that means you're going to have one leg looped back and one leg in front. And if this is challenging for you to do, grab a pillow and sit your bum on the pillow, and that should give you a little bit more space for your knees. All right. Great. All right, we good here? All right, so I'm gonna just cue you with your legs off to the left. So if you wanna be with me in the legs off to the left, bring your right hand down to the ground and your other hand on your hip. There you go. We're all together on the same page. So right here, we're gonna take this this left hip bone and bring it across to the opposite knee pit. So hip bone, opposite knee pit. And we're going to roll that hip again towards the opposite knee pit. You may get your booty off the ground a little bit there. And then we're going to spiral that hip back down to the ground. Good. Hip forward to the opposite knee pit, and then hip back down to the ground. Good. And yes, this is a hip mobility exercise. And you're thinking, well, this class is about spinal mobility. Why are we doing hip mobility? It's all connected. It's all connected. So we're going to get a little bit of hip in there too, a little bit of shoulder in this today too, because it's all connected. So hip over and then drop back. Nice. Bonus points if you get a little booty squeeze at the top. So when the hip rolls forward, squeeze your booty, push your knee down into the ground, and then lower the hip back down to the floor. Yeah. And we'll do this a few more times. Now, some of you are rotating in your trunk to get the movement, which is not a bad thing. Just know that that's not going to isolate your hip as much. So if this is you've done a few like this, great. Go ahead and try to keep your trunk forward and just move the hips. So a little bit more isolation. Great. Nice job. And we'll do about 2 more there. And last one. Now, hopefully that makes it a little bit easier to sit in this position. All right, so if you had trouble getting this position before, maybe it's a little bit better now. Maybe you don't need the pillow. We're going to grab onto your shin over on this left side, or put your hand down on the ground and get a nice side bend over here. All right, if you're feeling pinching in that hip, remember, use a pillow or more pillows. Good. And then we're going to go ahead and take that. I call this a cartwheel. We're going to come up and over, and we're going to rotate both hands onto the ground on this side. Right here, we're going to get a little push up. So bend the elbows, bring yourself down to the ground, almost like you want to kiss the floor, and then push back up. We'll take that left arm up and around, big cartwheel, and side stretch over to the left. Good. And of course, one lung breathing, if you remember that from last week. So we're going to go up and over, reach, cartwheel those arms, and then rotate at the last second. Your eyes are looking off to the right side of the room. Bring yourself down for a little floor tap or push up, and then reach your left arm towards the side of the room, and then cartwheel up and around and side stretch. Good. We're going to go through that a few more times. I'm not going to narrate every dot there, but taking from your other classes, your big classes, try to make that cartwheel really expansive. Big fingers, big everything. Nice work. Good. Perfect. And up. Good. We'll do 2 more of these, because I know it takes a few to kind of figure out what the heck you're doing in the first place. And then we'll do a couple more to enjoy it. Excellent. Last one. And open. Nice job. All right, before we get out of this position, we are going to do a functional transition, which just is a fancy way of saying we're going to move from this position to another position in a functional way, in a thoughtful and mindful way. So we're going to take our hands over to the right side, kind of on the diagonal over the right knee, and bring your hands down. Press off of your knees and bring yourself into kind of a Z sit, but quadruped. And then we're going to take your hips back and bring yourself fully upright. Great. So hands down, press forward, and then drop back and hands upright. Nice. Forward and hands back and upright. Maybe one more like this. Now, this is a great option for you. I'm going to introduce the next level. If it's too much, go back to that option. Right here, we're going to do no hands or maybe one hand just barely and bring yourself into a 2-point. I was told that Australians call this 2-point instead of kneeling. I learned that yesterday. So we're going to go up, sort of a 2-point Z sit, right? And then back down. Nice. Now, if you want to get a little bit more athletic with it, start pumping through quite quickly. Maybe don't actually sit down at the bottom. You could just tap your booty and then press through, okay? Otherwise, we're just working on the motion. If this is still new for you, take your time to navigate it. Open up the hips at the top. We'll go for 2 more. Last one. Good. And at the top, we're going to stay here, sort of unwind yourself. And we're going to find your Z sit on the other side. So again, either on your pillow or just straight up on the floor. And if you're with me, we'll have your legs casted off to the right side. Okay. Quick note too on this back foot, which I know I didn't say on the other side. If possible, try to have your laces facing down. It's a little bit better for that knee joint than having the foot sort of like that. So having the laces down is a better option if you have that available to you. Okay. All righty, same thing as we did before. Left hand off on the ground, other hand on your hip. We're going to go hip to opposite knee pit, press the hip forward, and then drop the hip back. Press the hip forward, drop the hip back. Good. Nice. And just notice what your default is. Again, we talked about this last time, sort of like, okay, maybe I'm just going to rotate my whole spine, and that's fine. And then I'm going to experience the isolation of the hip, which is going to ask for more gluteal booty. We just make up a word. Glute squeeze. Glute squeeze back and then pushing the knees down. Good. Hip, hip, hip. Perfect. And drop. Nice. And so right here, you're getting that femur to roll in its socket, sort of like a mortar and pestle. It's kind of like dropping in and then coming out, dropping in, coming out, which is really important for both your mobility on the floor, but then also in gait as well, if that's something you care about improving. Good. We'll do 2 more here. And last one. Good. And then we're going to go into that lateral flexion or your side bend. So one hand over on this side, either holding onto your shin or fully onto the ground. And we're going to go up into that side bend stretch. If you want more of a stretch, bend that bottom elbow and really reach. Here's the rule though. You need to keep this hip pinned on the floor. Keep this hip heavy down and then reaching up into your side bend from there. All right. We're going to cartwheel those arms up and over. Bring it all the way over, get a twist on the last second there, and both hands come onto the ground. Press into a little push-up, bring it back up, and then big cartwheel up and over for your side bend or lateral flexion. Good. Beautiful arms up and around. And any opportunity to get those arms up overhead or past your ears, I'll take it, because that's something that we lose too, that mobility in your shoulders. If we don't expose ourselves often to it. So keeping that mobility in your shoulders of the overhead reach. Oh, it feels so good. Feels so good. Yeah. Beautiful. And once you have the pattern down, then it just becomes fun and flowy and fluid and oh, so good. Great job. We'll do one more. Beautiful. And reset. Nice work. All right, we're going to go into that functional transition into your 4-point. Yeah, 4.2 point is the Aussie say. So we're going to go off to the side here. Reach forward, push off your knees and bring your hips off the pillow or off the floor. And then we're going to sit back and reset back into your start position. Now, right here, try to keep, I'd say this on the side, but try to keep your foot connected here. So when you come forward this way, your foot might lose that mobility, but we want to try to keep that external rotation in your hip, okay? And then go ahead and take a seat back to the mat and get rid of that guy. So we're gonna go up, press, good, and bring it back. And that transition to be able to come off of your hands is equally as important as coming onto your hands too. Nice. Great. We'll do 2 more here. And then I'm going to show the up level option if you would like it. If you would like it. All right. So we're going to collect, come up into that 2-point. Make sure your hips are forward and square, keeping this foot as is. Don't let it slide back. And then bring it back home. Nice and slow. Good. Work that mobility in your hips and your control on the descent. Yep. You can either rest at the bottom fully and then draw yourself back up. Or if you want to take up your tempo a little bit, it's just a tap and go. Tap and go. Yes. Nice. Tap and go. You got it. Tap and go. 2 more. Last one. Beautiful. Bring yourself into a kneeling position. I'm just going to scoop back. All right. Hopefully we're good on our knees. If you're not good on knees from knee replacements, whatever, you can do this in a seated position as well on the ground. So finding a seated position. All right. Arms out in a T. So we've talked a little bit about side bending. But we're going to do, okay, so let's actually do a few side bends. So if we were to come up, tip over into that side bend, this is very similar to what we did in that Z sit. See if you can bring your hand down to the floor. Yes. As you're side bending over to this side of the world, try to keep your opposite knee heavy on the ground. Good. And then bring yourself back up. Let's do that again. Side bend up and over to that other side. Good. Again, keeping that opposite knee heavy on the ground. If you're having trouble here, you can grab a yoga block or a book or something of that sort to put underneath your hand and then bring yourself back up. So we'll do a couple more of those. If you need that yoga block or prop, grab it. We go up and over. Good. Down to the ground if you got it. Yep. Up and over. Inhale into those ribs. Expand like an accordion. Good. One more time on each side. Inhale. Good. Perfect. And I think we have one more. Maybe not. Yes, I think we do. Good. And bring it on down. Nice work. Arms are going to come out in front of you. I'm just going to turn so you can see. Good. So again, also make sure your hips are forward so that we get that full extension in the hips. We're going to reach your right arm forward. So try to make your right arm longer than your left arm. And then swap it. And you'll know this gives you a micro rotation in your trunk, which I really like. Okay, so there's this reaching. Can we see that? It's a little rotation. And when you try to make one arm longer than the other. Good. Now go ahead and take your eyes to your left thumbnail. We're going to keep your right arm reaching forward. The left shoulder sort of comes back to counter that, right? And we're going to pull your left hand across your chest. Keep looking at your thumb. And then we're going to pull it all the way behind us. Keep looking at your left thumb. Now you're in a big rotation to the left side of your body. Yes? Imagine someone's pulling on your fingers and pulling you in opposite directions. So you're really reaching through that rotation and pulling it to its furthest potential. Good. Eyes are still on the left thumb. We're going to pull it back to your heart and then back forward to match the other hand. We got it? So the eyes are going to go with your rotation. Left thumb, pull the left thumb to your heart. Rotate back behind you with your left thumb. Someone's grabbing onto both fingers. Reach the fingers apart from one another. Bring your thumb back to your heart and bring it back in. Oh, I don't know why this one always gets me like really warm. I think because I'm working really hard on creating that rotation and tension. It's a lot of core work. Reaching out opposite directions, opposite directions. Yep, and bring it back home. And we're going right thumb, pull across and behind you. Good. Imagining all those organs getting their twisting in. Good. Organs that like twisting are your kidneys and your liver. Good. And bring it in. We're going to go one more to the right side. Bring it in. Oh, and my arms got tired on that one. Shake it out. Nice work, everyone. All righty. So we're going to do another sort of version of getting down to the floor, sort of a sitting version. And this requires a lot of lateral movement in your spine. So we're going to, I'm going to show with the pillow. You can, of course, use the pillow without or go without. We're going to take your shins over to the right and then bring your hand down onto the ground and lower your hips down to the mat or your pillow. Good. And just sitting like this requires this lateral flexion. All right. And then from here, use your hands or not. Bring yourself back up to your tall kneeling position, 2-point position. Same side. Okay. So we're going to swing the legs off, lower yourself down to the mat. See if you can engage here. Some of you may be falling this way because it's tight. If you need to grab onto your shins or something like that, go ahead and do that. And then bring yourself back up. Good. So again, I love this as an example of available spinal mobility for mobility to get around on the floor. I'm going to ditch my pillow. Go ahead and drop down. Now try not to use your arms. Good. And I like to like swing it like a bat to like counterbalance my weight here. And then we're going to pull up into that 2-point. Use your hands or not. Excellent. Nice job. Drop on back. Feel the stretch on that deep side and then pull yourself back up. You got it. Nice. Drop and lift. Now, if you want to make it more athletic, up the tempo, don't rest at the bottom. Tap and go. Tap and go. Good. 5, or whatever tempo you're going. 3, 2, and 1. Nice job. Ooh, maybe that side feels a little bit more stretched than the other side. Go ahead and let's do the other side. So swing your legs over to the left. Use your pillow if you need to. Use your hands if you need to. Drop yourself down over to the left side. And sitting here, feeling the stretch on your side body here. In Pilates, we call this posture mermaid, but I think with our gender equality movement here, we're going to try just call this mer person. And then go ahead and press yourself back up to your tall kneeling. All right. So now that you sort of know the end of the story, go ahead and work through whatever version you need to stretch out that side and get down to the floor. Again, use a pillow if it feels a little too far away. Good. Or even if a pillow feels really far away, I think I'll still be in the thing. You can even just try to go hip to touch a coffee table and then bring it back. Hip to touch a coffee table and bring it back. That's a nice version too if getting down to the ground is challenging. Yes, nice. All right, pick up the tempo if you want it. Drop down and drive. Tap down and drive. And you may notice the difference. If one side feels a little bit easier or harder than the other, again, mental notes on mapping that in your body. Good. Nice. 3 more. Yep. 2 more. And last one. Beautiful. Bring it all the way up to your kneeling. Nice. And hopefully you're a little bit more worked on both sides. So instead of having to think about, okay, I've got to do my spine stretches today, if you just get on the floor and move around in different ways, you're inherently going to get that spinal mobility in a functional way, which I really love. All right, let's go arms out into a T again. So we have side bending of the spine, and then sort of in the same family, but a little bit different, is spine translation. So it's as if your vertebrae are separating like a staircase and then restacking on top of each other. Okay. So if side bending is like opening your spine like a fan, like each vertebrae is like a fan, translation is more of like it's lateral translation. They slide to the side. Okay. So we're going to try that a little bit here. Keeping your right knee anchored down onto the ground. We're going to slide over to the side, but the hands stay level. They didn't tip, right? Your body didn't tip. Your head didn't tip. We just translated. Good. And then bring it back center. And then translate to the other side. Keep the opposite hip anchored. Try not to let yourself side bend, right? There's a difference. Go over. Yes. And then bring it center. Translate over. And then center. You got it. Translate over. And center. Translate over. Nice. Yep. So if you were, we're not in groups anymore, but if you were next to someone and you had your hands on their shoulders and as a group, you're sort of swaying, it would be something of that sort. All right. So we're going to go 2 more. And last one. Good, good. And my arms got tired, so I'm going to shake them out. Nice job. All right. Let's bring it back down to 4-point or quadruped. I'm going to just dip the lid of my laptop down just a little bit. Cool. All right. Separate your fingers really wide so that you have a nice base underneath your wrists. And right here, I want you to imagine that you have 4 sections of your spine. So we're going to say the tail. Go ahead and just wiggle your tail. Yeah, there you go. Just the pelvis. Good. And then just wiggle your head. Just your head. Nod your head. You can twist your head. Good. And then you have your upper back, which is sort of like connected to your shoulders. So go ahead and just wiggle through your shoulders and feel the upper back. Good. And then you have kind of your ribs. So this would be different than your tail in the film, in the recording. It looks sort of similar, but the ribs is sort of this lateral translation that we were doing. So if I was on a glass floor, it would look something like this, what I'm doing. Yeah. So we have 4 sections of our spine: our tail, our ribs, our upper back, and our head. Let's just say for today, we have 4 sections. All right. So we're going to try to divide. We're going to do some movement through our spine, but we're going to be mindful about which section we're moving at any particular time. So right here, go ahead and tuck your tail underneath you into flexion. So your tail is going in and your low back is going into flexion. The rest of your body is pretty neutral, right? We haven't done anything with the rest of the body. And then go ahead and go into extension of your lumbar spine. So your eyes are still in neutral. Whatever you're doing with your head, it hasn't changed. You're really just working the lower half in flexion and extension, and being really mindful about trying to isolate that lower fourth of your spine. Yep. Good. Then we're going to add on the next part, the next section right next door, the ribs. So we're going to go flexion in the low back and then flexion in the ribs. Draw your ribs in. And then let your ribs flare and then let your tail flare. So you're going to draw the tail underneath you and then the ribs underneath you. And then the ribs flare and the tail flares. Okay. So I know this can be kind of hard to see, but if my ribs were sort of poking out here, I'm going to draw my ribs in first and then tuck the tail. And then tuck the tail and then untuck the tail and then let my ribs flare. Good. And just work with whatever version you have. Again, this is, brain training is just, yes, reintegrate our senses, but part of that too is feeling and sensing your body and the different areas of your body and the way it can move. All right, let's add the upper back component. So we're going to go tail tuck, rib draw, upper back pushes, and let's just go ahead and drape your head. We'll add the 4th component too. We're going to do the tail first. Tail releases first. Then the ribs flare, then the sternum drops to the ground, and then your eyes come up. And I know we're going slow, but that's on purpose. Tuck the tail first, draw your ribs in, push the ground away to push your sternum up towards the ceiling, and then drop your head. Everything's in flexion. And then tail, ribs, sternum, chest bone, eyes. We'll do that one more time. Tail. Pull the ribs in, push the ground away to bring the sternum up, and then drop your eyes underneath. And last one, tail releases, ribs drop, sternum drops, and then the eyes come up. Nice. All right, rock off your wrists a little bit, give them a little roll. How we doing? Good. Our brain is in our body, right? Yeah. All right, so right here, we're gonna go into a little bit more rotation here. Bring your arms out in front of you slightly. We've done this one before in other classes. We're gonna thread the needle. So let's go ahead, take one arm and just wave it. One hand, just wave it. And then take that waving hand now, thread it underneath your opposite armpit and rotate your trunk until you can look underneath that arch that your planted hand did. All right, so in this position, I'd like you to try not to put weight through your head or your neck, but rather kind of resting on your shoulder and your arm. Good, and then bring yourself back up into that 4-point with your hands sort of outstretched. And we'll go ahead and do that same thing on the other side. Take an inhale, and then as you exhale, wring out your spine. You can make it a really obnoxious and audible exhale if you'd like. And then bring it back up. And we'll do the same thing. Inhale, exhale, bring out the spine as you rotate. Nice. Good. And bring it up. And one more time over to the other side. Good. And center yourself up. Perfect. Walk those knees forward towards your hands, which requires spinal flexion. If this transition doesn't work for you, feel free to find something else, but it is kind of fun. We're going to cross the legs over. For a moment, it might not be super comfortable, but you're going to roll over your shins. That requires flexion. And then bring your legs out in front of you. Great. Let's go ahead and back prop. So we're going to bring our hands behind us. Now this creates extension in our spine. A little bit of extension. If you have tight shoulders, you might want to go a little wider with your hands. If you have good shoulder mobility, you have lots of space available to you, you can go more narrow. Okay. Right here, we're going to practice your flexion extension in this position as well. So draw your tail underneath you, let your sternum sit back and bring everything into flexion. Your shoulders might come up to your ears, and that's okay. Good. And then from there, press through the heel of your hand and dig your sit bones down into the ground to open up your chest and give yourself an arch. Maybe let's bring our chin up as well and give yourself a little bit of lift through the spine. Yep. And we're going to drop into that flexion. Yep. And then going into that extension, opening up the collarbones, eyes come up. And then when I say dig your tail down into the ground, it's kind of like, so if I'm just going to hover so you can see, so I'm like doing this with my tail, but I'm pushing into the ground. Yep. You see that? Flexion and extension. If you want to wave through your spine, sort of like what we did in our 4-point, you can do that too. Nice. Massaging those organs. Like I said, massage those organs. Love it. Last two. Good. And one more time. Perfect. Nice job. Take your right arm up towards the ceiling and rotate over to the left a little bit. Rotate to the left. Look away from me if I'm on the right side of you. Look away from me. Just, yeah, rotate. Perfect. And then bring your hand back down. That should feel nice. We're going to bring your other arm up. So left arm up and rotate to the right. Push down into the ground with the hand that's still there so that you get that nice lift through. So you're still in extension during your rotation, and then switch. Exhale as you twist. Get all that air out. Awesome. Good. Bring it up. We get a little rest off of our wrist too when we do the single-sided work. We're going to go one more in each direction. I like to pull with this hand that's on the ground. I pull my body into that rotation. Yep. And last one over to the side that we did not start with. Good, good. And then go ahead and let your legs go out. And if you want to do a little forward fold stretch, go ahead. Go ahead and grab that. Where are we at with the time? Perfect. All righty. So we're going to sit in a long sitting position. And oftentimes our hamstrings get really tight. So this position for some of us may not be comfortable. If that's the case, just bend your knees up and let your knees sort of flop out to the side. So that way you can draw your tail sort of up behind you and sit more vertical. Okay. If you're able to do this, stay here, but I'm going to show this version as well. All right. So in this position, whichever one you're doing, I want you to try to turn your toes, your knees, and your thighs over to the right without moving anything in your torso. And then your toes, your knees, and your thighs move to the other side. Woo! Good. And so what we're doing here is we're getting rotation in the femurs. And if you do this little hand gesture with me, sometimes that's nice. Doing it with the upper body helps the lower body. Good. And if, again, you're just having trouble still sitting up, you can bring your hands back and do it this way too. Yeah, good. So in addition to spinal mobility, there's also a component of spinal stability, like voluntary stability. So stability is different than rigidity and stiffness, right? So stability would be voluntarily stiffening your spine. And then we can challenge that stability by moving other limbs and seeing if we can still keep that shape. So right here, this would be spinal stability with movement in your legs. Good. All righty. Go ahead and shake it out and give yourself maybe a forward fold because that was a lot of movement in your hips. I like a little butterfly stretch, soles of the feet together. Take a couple breaths. We do so much learning in this class and I love it. Do you like it or is it too much? You'll tell me after class. Do I insert too much like anatomy bits? Is it overwhelming? I hope you turned it off if it is. All right, go ahead and bring it back again. So we're going to do what's called sit bone walking, where we're locomoting forward, but using our pelvis as locomotors instead of our legs. So there's a theory called the spinal engine that states that gait, so walking, is not about the legs at all. The legs are sort of more of a vehicle, but the engine is the spine. And so the winding up of the spine is what sort of creates the propulsion. And then the legs are sort of just a manifestation of that winding. All right. So we can really test how well our spinal engine is working by taking out the legs and just moving in our trunk. All right. So we're going to go ahead and lean over to the left. So we unweight your right sit bone. Sit bone is that bony part on your pelvis, if you didn't know. And we're going to lift up that sit bone and take a step. Okay, that requires rotation, doesn't it? It requires side bending and rotation. We're going to shift over to the other side, take the sit bone and take a step, and take a step with the other side, and take a step with the other side. And there's a winding quality of it where you can see now we've got this side bending and rotation happening in our spine in order to make that happen. Good. We'll do that again. Once you run out of space, go backwards. Good. And think about pushing off the ground with your sit bones. Push off to take the step. Push off to take the step. You're getting a hip flexor cramp? Yeah. Let those arms flail, especially if this is your first time doing it. Let it go, right? We want that rotation. We want that rotation. Excellent. Nice job. Good, good. We're going to do it again. And I'm going to do a set facing away from the camera so you can maybe see even the winding of the spine that happens. Okay, I'm going to trust that I'm in frame. And go ahead and do your own set, or you can watch if you like the observation. So I'm going to shift. There's some side bending that happens. I push the hip forward. That's the rotation. And then I drop. I'm going to push off this sit bone in order to get this one to come up. Side bend, lift, side bend this way, rotate, and drop. Side bend, drop, side bend, drop, side bend, drop. Good. So hopefully maybe you're either watching or you're at the end of your mat. And then of course we're going to go backwards. Good. And you should try to feel your sit bones, that bony part kind of pushing off, push off. Yeah. And then same thing on the back. And if you have gotten back to your starting point, do one more while I work my way back. Good. Nice. Awesome. Perfect. All right. So we're going to bring ourselves up to a, how was that? Good? We're just watching, or were you participating? You were resting when I wasn't looking. Well, huh? All right. So we're going to do a nice functional transition back up to stand that takes some good spinal mobility. So it's kind of built in to the exercise. So we're going to take your legs and we're going to cross them over. If you want to be with me, we're going to have the right leg crossed in front of the left. Right leg crossed in front of the left. There needs to be active feet in this one. So make sure that you're working actively in your feet. So if your right leg is over the front, we're going to take your right arm up towards the ceiling. We sort of did this already, right? We're going to bring this hand down to the ground and start to rotate your thighs, push through your feet and come into sort of an A-frame or a down dog or something of that variety. Don't come up all the way to stand quite yet. I think that's obvious from here. We're going to reverse that same thing. So bend your knees, drop your hip, your left hip to the ground, and bring yourself back into your sort of cross leg. Okay, we're going to do 3 on one side and then we'll switch. So right arm comes up, hand comes down. We rotate and press your booty up towards, excuse me, towards the ceiling. Twist the legs, bring the hip back down, and then bring your hand back down to the mat. I've got something stuck in my throat. I'm going to try not to die here. We're going to go up and around, booty up. Nice. And spiral those hips back down and release. Not bad, right? Okay, let's do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just spinning around so I can still face towards you. So we're going to go left foot over the right. Left foot over the right. I may be backwards from you, so just go left foot over the right. Left hand up towards the ceiling. There's that rotation that we had earlier. We rotate and come all the way down. Oh, there's a lot of movement there. Push off through your feet and bring yourself up, booty down, or booty up, I should say. Yeah, reverse that same direction. So your right hip's going to come down to the ground. You sort of pivot through the balls of your feet, drop the hip down, and then unwind onto the ground. Yeah, your wrists are getting some work, aren't they? Here we go. Up, around, push up, booty up towards the ceiling. Work through the beat, edges of your feet and the balls of your feet. Nice job. Bring it down, hip down, and then bring it down. What I like about this one is it turns us upside down. It gives us another perspective of the world. Good for your vestibular system. Last one. Up. Woo. Good. And then you could probably guess in your A-frame or down dog, whatever world you live in, you can walk your feet in, finding a good solid position here. Make sure there's nothing behind you that, or maybe you want something behind you to roll yourself up so you don't fall backwards. Nice and slow. You can bring your hands onto your shins, round your spine. So keep your head low, round your spine as you come up and bring yourself all the way up to the top. Make sure that you take a moment to let your blood pressure regulate if that's you. And then go ahead and walk around the room and see how you feel. This is your checkout process now. We're checking in on gait. How's the quality of your stride? The sound of your feet on the ground? The smoothness? And then are your arms swinging naturally? Yeah, see some of you guys having a little bit of arm swing. And again, that arm swing should be involuntary. It's a consequence of hip rotation and spine rotation. Don't try to make the arm swing happen. It'll happen when you have good hip rotation and good spine rotation. Good. All right, we're going to come in. We're going to check your side bending and your rotation in these other standing sort of stretches. So wide base, hands on either side. Good. And we just did flexion and extension. So round your spine, tuck your tail, extend your spine, eyes come up. Okay, we did a bunch of this cow stuff in different varieties on the ground. So hopefully you're feeling that. Good. And then let's go ahead and drop one shoulder, look over the other. Oh yeah, so much more. And then switch. Good. So as you're going through some of these movements and kind of thinking, how does this feel in contrast to when we started? Good. And then go ahead and bring yourself up nice and easy. And we'll do your side bend test. So hands by your side, feet underneath you. Slide over to the side. See how far down your leg you can grasp. And then back up, then over to the other side. Good. Now, what I like about what we did today was it wasn't, I mean, we did have spine stretches, like traditional spine stretches, but some of what we did were just functional transitions moving around on the floor that gave us that spinal mobility as a double dipper of practicing those functional movements. So if you find yourself, wanting to be a little bit more stimulated during your quote unquote stretching sessions, consider just doing some random movements or mimicking baby movements as they move around on the ground. I'll give you what you need. Good. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you felt some sort of increase in spine mobility, no increase, decreased in spine mobility, or in quality of stride. I think all thumbs up around. Nice. All right, we're going to do a quiet, quick reflection, 2 minutes. Find a nice place to rest yourself, either on the ground, and you can be seated or laying on your side or laying on your back, whatever's comfortable for you. And for those of you that this is new to, whenever we do a bout of learning, any type of learning, it's important that immediately after that session, you take 2 to 10 minutes of quiet solitude to, really download all that information and then pull it into a space, part of your brain that is more long-term storage. What am I trying to say? My words. So go ahead and close your eyes. Take a moment. I'm going to time us for 2 minutes. I'm going to turn off my audio. Feel free to turn off your video if that feels more comfortable for you. All right, go ahead and take a couple breaths in through your nose, not through your mouth. Try to make that exhale longer than your inhale. One more. And then audible exhale. Ah. Nice work, everyone. I hope your body feels really good and your spine feels really mobile. Before I turn off the recording, a reminder that if you enjoyed the class today and the programs that PD Active offers you, you can make your contribution or donation through the link that I put in the chat, or just go to pdactive.org/donate, and you can contribute to PD Active as a whole. If you have any questions, comments, or things you want to share, I'm going to turn off the recording and feel free to speak candidly.